Hi everybody, welcome to the Quiz 2 explanation for Lesson 8. Now this is a really long passage about two politicians that you've probably never heard of. Hopefully there'll be things in the question which help us to narrow the focus onto a small part of the passage. You definitely don't want to be reading the whole thing to try to answer the questions. But let's have a look how we can find little shortcuts to save time as we go. Question number 1. According to the passage, what do the two candidates have in common? So what comparison can we make? What is similar? Both are shallow thinkers. They do not think deeply. Their ideas are not well thought out. Both are well tailored and professional. They look very smart. Both are relative newcomers to Washington. They do not stay in Washington for a long time. Both come across as big spenders. Well, I think we're going to have to start reading and then we'll see how it goes. You really had to search for clues to the dynamic of the Democratic presidential race in the first televised question and answer session with Vice President Al Gore and former Senator Bill Bradley. I think probably they have been around a while. One of them is a vice president, one of them is a former senator. And we know that you would be a senator for 6 years, so they're probably not newcomers. What viewers who passed up the final game of the World Series saw was two tall men. So they are both tall. So the first part of answer A is true. One, Gore, was well tailored and the other was in an ill-fitting suit. So one is very smart, the other has a suit that doesn't look like it's the right size for him, either too big or too small. So they're not both well tailored. We can definitely remove answer B. Giving thoughtful answers to serious policy questions in a room full of New Hampshire voters. Well, they are giving thoughtful answers. Thoughtful could be deep answers. So they're not shallow thinkers. They are deep thinkers. So A and B are definitely wrong. C is probably wrong. It was not outsider Bradley versus insider Gore. The former US Senator from New Jersey talked at least as much about his legislative initiatives in 18 years on Capitol Hill as Gore did about his work for more than 2 decades in Washington. The senator has been in Washington for 18 years. Al Gore has been there for more than 20 years. They are not newcomers. So C is definitely wrong. So now we know that A, B, and C are wrong. We could just choose D, or we could go keep reading. Nor was it the New Democrat Gore versus Old Democrat Bradley. Gore did argue that Bradley's healthcare plan would use up all the budget surplus and then some, so Bradley will spend a lot of money on healthcare. But the vice president proposed enough new programs of his own that New Hampshire Republican chairman Steve Dupree greeted reporters leaving the debate with a press release, plausibly claiming that both men spent the entire 1 trillion surplus. Both of them have plans, lots of spending plans, so both of them seem like big spenders. D is correct. Number 2, on the basis of the excerpt, which of the following most effectively contrasts the personal style of the two men? The difference. One is an outsider, one is an insider. But paragraph 3 said not outsider versus insider. So A is definitely wrong. And that would be their position, not their personal style. Bradley is reserved, shy. Gore is friendly. Gore worked to impress the audience. Bradley did not. Or Gore has a sense of humor. Bradley does not. Well, in personal style. We can see that personal style there, and we can see that the fourth paragraph begins in personal style. So we can guess that the answer will be in this fourth paragraph. The differences were clearer. Bradley was, as usual, quiet, almost to the point of difference, treating questioners with respect, but seeking no intimacy. So Bradley was quiet. Bradley did not seek intimacy. Intimacy means closeness, a close friendship. Gore, change color. Gore worked harder to make an impression. He came on stage with a head of steam, and for 15 minutes before the telecast began, he invited questions from the audience, dragging a reluctant-looking Bradley into the unscheduled warm-up exercise. So Gore has a lot of enthusiasm. He is working hard to make an impression. He wants to impress the audience. But it doesn't say that Bradley did not want to impress them. This is a debate. And in a debate, both sides want to win. Both sides want to win supporters. So Bradley was quiet. Quiet can be reserved. So this part is correct. And Gore, well, Gore was trying to make an impression. He wanted more questions. He went on stage early. He tried to get more relationship with the people. He tried to interact with them more. He tried to talk to them more. So B would be the better answer. Number 3, according to the author, which of the following provided the clearest insight into the candidate's character? Their choice of political role models, their position on the economy, their plans for the budget surplus, or their vision for national health care? Well, it was Bradley that had a healthcare plan. Gore is not mentioned as that. Both of them plan to spend a lot of money, so both of them are quite similar. The most revealing moment drew almost no notice. The clearest insight, something that is revealing. Asked about leaders and leadership, Gore and Bradley each cited 3 role models. Gore's were safe and predictable. Lincoln for his values, FDR, that's Roosevelt, for his power of persuasion, and Lyndon Johnson for the scope of his domestic agenda. No risk of offending, no originality. Bradley chose differently. Jimmy Carter for his veracity, but Carter was not a popular president. Woodrow Wilson for his far-sightedness. He was the one that took America into the war just a few months after saying he would not. And Mikhail Gorbachev, well, he was a Russian leader, not an American leader. So these men were visionaries. They showed his big leaders. So the most revealing point, the biggest difference, was when they talked about their leaders. For Gore, he was very predictable. There was nothing original. There was nothing new. For Bradley, he had more bigger ideas. He was choosing people that might be unpopular, but people that he really believed in. So answer A would be the best. Number 4. On the basis of the excerpt, which of the following is the most likely reason that Gore started an impromptu question and answer session before the telecast? Well, that was in this paragraph. He worked hard to make an impression. He came on 15 minutes early to invite extra questions. So is it about embarrassing Bradley? Well, it says he dragged a reluctant-looking Bradley onto the stage. Bradley was reluctant to speak more. He was reluctant to do the impromptu, the new thing, but it wasn't that he was embarrassed. Embarrassed is not given in the passage. B, Gore had more information to convey than he had time for in the debate. We don't know if he had more information. That would be not given. So B is not correct. C and D. Gore wanted to appear accessible. Gore was making a genuine display of enthusiasm. C and D are about how he appears, but C says he is trying to appear accessible. He wants people to think that they can come to him. D says it is genuine. Genuine means real, from the heart. He's not faking it. Well, it says in that passage, Gore worked hard to make an impression. If you're working hard to do something, it's not genuine. It's not natural. It's something that you're trying to do that you would not normally do. So that suggests that answer C is the better answer. What does the author mean in paragraph 6 when he says that Gore never seems to know when to leave well enough alone? Well, it's down here. He never seems to know when to leave well enough alone. Answer A is about worrying too much. B is about bothering the other person. C is offending people. Or D often goes too far. So his efforts at humor fell flat. His inquiries about the questioner's families seemed contrived, seemed false. At the end, when he thanked the voters of New Hampshire for the great learning experience of campaigning for their votes, he was almost a caricature, like a cartoon character of a pandering politician, a politician who wants to say yes to everything that people want. So he goes too far. His humor went too far. He tried to tell too many jokes and he was not funny. He asked about all the people's family. Well, they want to know about him. His friendliness went too far. And that idea of thanking them for the experience, he doesn't really want to thank them for the experience. His gratitude, his falseness went too far. D is the right answer. There's nothing in this paragraph about the other candidates, so that's why we can remove B. There's nothing about worrying either, so A is wrong. So is it that he offended people? Well, he was trying to tell jokes. Jokes might or might not offend people. He was asking about the families of the people that asked him questions. That normally wouldn't offend people, but it might mean that people don't really believe that he is so friendly. According to the author, which of the following words best describes the role models for leadership that Gore selected? So we're talking about role models that Gore selected. We were talking about role models before with the most revealing moment. And they were asking about leaders and leadership. And leadership is there and it matches that word down there. And then they each cited 3 role models, which is that word. So Gore's were utterly safe and predictable, no risk of offending. So inspiring, that means it encourages you to think a lot. These were predictable. Nobody would be inspired. Original, new ideas? No, these were safe. There was no originality. So A and B are definitely wrong. Unacceptable? Well, they were safe. Nobody could object. Nobody could say that these were not good leaders. Abraham Lincoln, one of the best presidents America ever had, who ended slavery. Roosevelt, again, one of the best presidents that America ever had, who ended the Great Depression and did a lot of social welfare reform. And Lyndon Johnson, he had the Great Society and he focused on equality, raising literacy rates, and trying to reduce discrimination. So these were 3 great presidents. Nobody would say they were unacceptable. They would say they were not offensive. Well, inoffensive is the same as no offense. So D is the best answer because there was no risk of offending. Which 2 paragraphs focus mainly on the similarities between the candidates? 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 4 and 5, or 6 and 7? Let's just put these in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, 7 is showing that Gauze was safe and predictable, in contrast to Bradley, who was courageous and choosing people that were different. So it's definitely not going to be paragraph 7. How about paragraph 1? You really had to search for clues to the dynamic of the Democrat presidential race with Vice President Al Gore and former Senator Bill Bradley. This is not showing any similarities. This is more of an introduction. So by removing A and D, both of the remaining answers include paragraph 4. And maybe we can get that because in paragraph 4 it says both men, and that word both is a clue that we're looking at a similarity. Both men wanted to spend the entire $1 trillion surplus in 60 minutes. So we now need to ask, is it going to be B, which means paragraph 3, or C, which means paragraph 5? Let's look at 5 first. It says the differences were clearer. This is about differences, not similarities. So C is probably not correct. Paragraph 3, well, 18 years on Capitol Hill, 2 decades in Washington. Both of them have been in Washington for a long time. That's a similarity. Both of them have been working in politics for a long time. So paragraph 3, both a long time in politics. Paragraph 4, both want to spend a lot of money. So B is the right answer. And then the final question. Which of the following points of view is supported by the writer's statement that you really had to search for clues to the dynamic of the Democratic presidential race in the first televised question and answer section? The debate was not worth watching. The contrast between the candidates was not as sharp as expected. The candidates held back more than they gave. Or the Republicans offer a clearer choice of candidates than the Democrats. Well, paragraph 3 talked about their similarity. Both have been working in Washington for a long time. Paragraph 4 talked about their similarity. Both want to spend a lot of money. So the contrast is maybe not as big as they expected. They were expecting that the two of them would be very different, but both of them give thoughtful answers. Both of them have worked in politics for a long time. Both of them have been in Washington. Both of them want to spend a lot of money. There are a lot of similarities. There is nothing in the passage that says the Republican candidates are better. The only Republican mention is here in paragraph 4, where the Republican leader says they both want to spend a lot of money. There's nothing about the Republican candidates anywhere in the passage. And then C, holding back means not giving everything. Well, Al Gore came on stage 15 minutes early to answer extra questions, and Bradley was dragged on to do the same. They gave extra time. They're not holding back, they are giving extra. So that's why C is wrong. The debate was not worth watching. Well, it's difficult. Was it worth watching? We learned about their similarities. There was something about their differences. There was something about lacking originality or being a visionary and having a big plan. There were lots of information, lots of important points that were made. So it probably was worth watching. If you are a member of the Democrat Party and you have to choose who you want to run to be the next president, this would be useful for you because you would learn about each of the two candidates. But the similarities were more than expected. Well, that's the end of this video. Hopefully that has helped you to match things in the passage to the questions, and that will be a really important skill when you go to do the longer passages in the new GED format. O selesai, Coder.